Welcome to the Mosaic Podcast. We're so happy to have you here. The Mosaic Society is all about celebrating the intersections of our identity, whether it's through culture, spirituality, or civics. We're three friends exploring these paths together. I'm T. Marie, your cultural mosaic.
I'm Roseberry, the voice of the spiritual mosaic.
And I'm Shreya, bringing in the civic mosaic. Our mission is to strengthen friendships through exploring each other's passions and to inspire confidence for you to show up as your true self in your communities.
We'll be sharing new insights, ideas, and conversations each week with fresh posts every Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And of course, this podcast on Sundays. So let's dive in and explore the many intersections of identity together. Hello.
Hello.
We're back today. We are having our second interfaith dialogue. There's not much to say. This one's going to be focused on advocacy and community service. Our last one was just kind of like a general interfaith dialogue about our faith and worldviews and all that. But this one, we're going to focus it. We're still going to be talking about our faith and everything, but how that connects to our version or our participation when it comes to advocacy and community service. So, yeah, that's what we're doing. Do y'all have any questions? They're shaking their head no. Okay, so first question we'll start off with just a general question so we can have a foundation. How does your faith or spirituality worldview help you understand what it means to serve others and or to speak up for justice?
Service was instilled in me and my brothers from like a very young age. Many of the just activities or organizations that we were a part of growing up had some aspects of community service, and then it was also ingrained in us in the household. So like one Bible quote that like we would always kind of hear growing up, and now it's like I hear a lot more now, which is cool because it's like, oh wow, I always knew that growing up, was Luke 12:48, to whom much is given, much will be required. And so I think that's just kind of like my mindset now when I look at service. Like I'm someone who I have advantages to be able to do certain things, so I should help people who don't have those advantages or don't have certain opportunities. And so that's just kind of how I live my life. And it's kind of funny because before I thought about this topic and these questions, I didn't realize how much my faith and how I view service kind of intertwines. I didn't think that there's that many connections, but there actually are. But then also on the other hand, I don't think I really tie advocacy or like justice to my faith. So that's interesting.
So service is with your faith, and it's been part of your faith has been part of a lot of the service that you've done, but you don't necessarily have that same relationship when it comes to advocacy.
No.
Okay. But what about you, Shreya?
I thought about this question a lot when I first read it, when it first came up. I drew a blank because while service and speaking up for those or speaking up for justice was something that was said to be good or what a person should do, it wasn't integrity tied to my faith. Like I grew up knowing that there's an element of service we should return back to society. All of that was there, and perhaps the adults did it more often, but I didn't really see it as much. But it's also a fact that I moved around a lot, so I didn't really form that close bond with any community as such. So my idea of service and justice might stem from my faith and spirituality, but it's not entirely tied to it. I think it comes from my idea of being a decent human being.
Do you feel like your idea of being a decent human being stems from um, some parts of your faith and spirituality? So it's like an indirect correlation?
I think there is an indirect correlation. I don't think there's a direct connection as such. Like I said initially, I do know that in my faith and personally, even spiritually speaking, I do feel that, and I have been taught that you need to service and speaking advocacy, not so much, but service. So speaking up when you see something wrong was a part of it, but it was never essential. We never did anything because of it or tied it to that. Maybe what we would do is to, I'm not sure if this is what you mean by service. later on, when I was a teenager, whenever there was something like somebody's birthday or there was a function at home or there was something that was important, a momentous celebration, we would also donate to a children's home or an elderly care home at the same time. So that was there, but it was never entirely tied to it. Indirectly, maybe, yes, but not directly.
For me, um, service and justice are a very big part of Islam. One of the five pillars of Islam, one of the five pillars of Islam is zakat, which is, I don't know what the direct translation is, but it's essentially service, like giving back to. And so, like, it's a very tangible way or a tangible connection between Islam and service, Islam and giving back to the community. So I think throughout my life, it's always been connected. I think a lot of the community service I did um, after like high school, like when I went to college, had to deal with religion because I did a lot of interfaith work. But before college, I feel like a lot of my community service had was more with like nonprofits that I worked with. I don't really remember doing a lot of like charity or service work with like my faith community. I mean we did stuff, but a lot of what I didn't wasn't connected to them. Um and I think it's cuz like there's different ways that you can define service and community and advocacy. And so for me it's never really been like the what is it called? I don't remember the name, but it's the type of service where you're doing something, like you're making a sandwich, you're helping out a shelter, and you're folding clothes,
Like
or it's I don't remember
volunteering.
what the not volunteering. It's a very specific type of service that it's called, but it's like it's not necessarily. I can't remember the name. Oh my god. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's a type of service that where you're like making sandwiches, you're doing something. You're doing something tangible. You're giving something. In-kind services.
Mm-hmm.
Those type of services is what I did a lot before college, like when I was growing up, but it was with other nonprofits. I feel like with the community I grew up with, a lot of the service ways I gave back was more like tutoring or babysitting or stuff like that. It was more so helping people with what they actually needed, like on a personal level. And so I feel like I don't have necessarily the community service like you wake up at 7 a.m., you go volunteer for 5 hours, and then you come home. It was always kind of like a continuous thing that always happened throughout my day to day life. So, yeah. And then for justice and advocacy, there's a lot of stories of the prophet where he is talking about justice or advocating for individuals who can't necessarily advocate for themselves, whether it was because of status or because of gender, whatever it was. So he was really big on advocating to strengthen the community. So that's also a a foundation of Islam, justice. Okay, so now that we've talked about the foundation of our faith and service and our faith and justice, how do you feel like people of different faiths can move? I quote, when I sent you guys this question, I wrote it as like move past this showing up together, like just showing up in solidarity. How can we build the deeper relationships needed to create real change in our communities, to advocate for people, to have these service opportunities to help communities that not we don't necessarily consider part of our community?
I looked at this question, I was just like, because I don't really know. But yeah, I don't really know. Like, this one kind of stumped me.
It's fair. If it helps, I don't know either.
This question made me laugh a little because I don't think, at least where I come from, I don't think we're showing up together in the first place for us to move beyond that and build deeper relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, oh, wait, hold on. I might have misread the question. So I thought of when I first thought of the question, I thought of people in my faith showing up for each other. But are you talking about interfaith showing up together?
Well, it is an interfaith dialogue.
Yes, that makes more sense.
So
Right.
yes.
Okay. All right.
But
My
it can also be intra faith. So you can
okay.
also talk about within your own faith because there's different communities within one
Okay.
identity.
Hmm.
Which is why I found it really hard to come up with an answer how you can lead real change in communities, because when there's a lot of disparity within a community in itself, or when you're unable to overcome those internal challenges and then come together, it becomes difficult to fathom how you're going to bring everyone together. Um, but I think in India we are capable and we have shown up for each other before. I mean, I think interfaith community is more easier to achieve than intra-faith community if you start looking at it at a very minuscule level.
I agree.
In the sense that you'd probably be able to make friends, form associations with people around you, the people you work with, um, who are very obviously different in terms of their faith and their background. But it's more difficult to make form deep interpersonal relationships with somebody who has similarity, but the differences become so much more stark because of those similarities. And when you're in the same faith, or at least in the same faith background. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. Can you repeat it one more time so I can store it in my memory? But it makes sense. Just say exactly what you said.
I can't do that. I'm sorry.
Because I was listening to you without like trying to keep it in my memory so I could stay on track. But what you said did make sense.
Okay. All right. I can't say it again. I
Wait,
just
I think what you're saying. No, I don't even think I could do it. But it makes sense what you're saying because to me, I think that it's difficult filming while is frozen.
no, she's not. She's moving. I
To
see her move.
me, she let me just screenshot this and I'll send it to y'all.
She has this look on her
But
face.
it's not even a look on her face. Well, I'll send it after because I can't get out of Riverside on my phone. Um,
Am I still
but
frozen for you?
yeah,
Oh,
Oh, that's you, buddy.
yeah.
I mean, but you're not frozen and I'm not frozen.
Yeah.
Oh, you're back. You're back. I'm facts are facts. Okay. Anyway, from for me, I do agree with the fact that like it's easier to have interfaith interactions and intrafaith interactions because to a degree, it's like it's more uncomfortable having interactions with someone who doesn't share your faith, but you can get through it because it's like you can tell yourself, oh, they just don't understand. Oh, they don't have the same knowledge as me. But when it comes to people within your own faith, where you're supposed to quote unquote have the same knowledge and quote unquote believe the same thing, when there is that tension because of disagreement or different perspectives, it's difficult to reconcile that because at one point you have to come to the conclusion that, okay, I don't want to say right or wrong, but it's like this is their perspective and this is what they believe, and I'm different, but we are both the same. We share the same title, we share the same identity, but we don't believe the same things, right?
Mm.
So like for we talked about this the other day. We me and my sister talked about this with Eid because she just learned about the Nation of Islam. And a lot of times people tend to group the Nation of Islam with Islam as the world religion, and they are two different things, but at the end of the day we all call ourselves Muslim, right? But we practice and go about things differently. The history, the foundation of what we or where our religion stems from is a little different, how we take that information in. You can't say they're not Muslim. You can't. Or that's not our place to say, oh yeah, you don't get that label. But then at the same time, how do you reconcile those differences, right? So
Yeah.
that's why I'm like intrafaith is a lot more difficult because you have to go down to like your morals and your ethics and your worldview, your foundation. When it's someone like I'm Muslim, T, you're Christian, and Shreya, you're Hindu. It's easier for us to have these different conversations because at our core, like I mean, Christianity and Islam has a lot in common. They're Abrahamic religions, but it's still different. We have different foundations compared to if I'm like, oh, this Shia Muslim, this some a Muslim who stems from the Nation of Islam. It's just harder
Yeah.
to bridge those differences.
Yeah. I think that's what I was trying to say, but also there's a layer of discrimination added sometimes. Um,
Yeah, for sure.
and it feels like when you're interacting with someone technically from the same faith or from the same spectrum of the faith, and you clash over things, and one group ends up feeling like, hey, you're basically telling me that I'm not of this faith because I believe this, or that I'm not worthy
Exactly.
of the same thing. When that happens, and in some cases when caste comes up, it becomes really divisive, very divisive. So that, yeah, I was actually thinking of this interaction with my friend who's a Sunni Muslim from Dubai, and she and I were different because we come from different backgrounds, we come from different faiths. And it's fine. She believed in something, I believed in something else. And I was able to reconcile that thing. That's what her practice is. But when I interacted with someone who's Hindu in the same region, in the same social circle, and we found differences, it was a little bitter because you felt like, how do you reconcile those differences? How do you build a relationship within that community? I don't know. So
Yeah. Mm. I think it's connecting it back to like advocacy and community service. A lot of times, I saw this quote on Instagram, I think. I don't know. I think it was Instagram. And it said, when you only start to care when your rights get taken away, you already lost. And facts. And I think a lot of times fall, we tend to follow social identity. What is it? Social identity theory? That's the title. We tend to follow social identity theory so much as human beings that we forget about the intersectionality of it all. And like, yes, there's in groups, there's out groups, there's communities that you relate to more than others. But I feel like we haven't, from a young age, we haven't been taught how to bridge those gaps. And so I think that's why it's also extra hard with intra faith relationships and coming together and advocating for community, because from a young age you're in this one group. This is my in group. These are people that I relate to. These are people that follow my same beliefs. And then when you're 18, 19, 20 and you start going to college and traveling and moving out and you're experiencing all these different conversations and experiences with people of different faith or similar faiths to you, it's like you don't have the foundation to have those conversations. You don't have the foundation to be maybe like you don't have the foundation to be secure in your faith in an effective way. Because there's one way to be secure in your faith, but be stubborn and not take in other perspectives and thought processes. But it's another way to be secure in your faith, but still be open and curious about other people and the way that they process the world, the way that they take it in, whether it's through the same religion as yours or spirituality or something else. And so I think we just lack the foundation of that from a young age. Because when we talk about community service, let me know if I'm wrong. When I like sent these questions and I said community service, did you guys think of like volunteering? Did you guys think of like, yeah, like that's what we see service as a lot. Like you have to go and do this one thing, an in-kind donation, an in-kind service, something like that. Instead of thinking of community service as advocacy and uplifting each other, because we don't have that foundation. And you have to seek that out at a certain age. Once you get to 18, 19, 20, you have to be willing to seek that out so that you can learn the foundation. And not everyone is. Not everyone wants to focus on that at first or ever, but it just depends.
it's really interesting you say that because uh, when we were looking at, uh, sorry, I just lost my train of thought. Mid thought, I lost my train. Okay, hold on, give me a second.
Ready? It's really interesting you say that because when
It's
we were looking at,
okay. It's really interesting you say that because in India, when we look at intra-community service, the idea of standing up for each other, standing up against injustices that are happening, advocacy is what most people do. But when it comes to actually volunteering, getting down, doing the work that needs to be done, or maybe like offering to make a sandwich, that doesn't happen as often, at
that's
least
interesting.
not
I feel like it's
within my
flipped.
community.
I think that's flipped in America. I could be wrong, but I feel like that's flipped.
I think of it as the difference between yapping and actually doing.
Talking the talk or walking the walk.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that's interesting. I don't know. I feel like America, we do a lot of the walking the walk, but it's usually very personable or direct. Like you're going to the church down the street or your church and you're helping with the food drive. Or you're going to volunteer at an elementary school next to your work, you know? I feel like in America we tend to struggle doing that on a larger interpersonal scale where it takes less of your time and more of your emotional energy and emotional intelligence. Then again, America's system is very difficult to fight at the same time. So I don't know. I'm thinking. It's okay if you don't have anything to say, T. Um, since we're talking about this, there was one question. It was like, oh, it was like, hold on, dang, where is it? Here. A lot of service projects focus on short-term help like food drives. How can we also use our faith to push for long-term change, like policy shifts or deeper community healing? Because I feel like a lot of what we've talked about is we're talking about how it's difficult to come together within your community, and outside your community, but just more so within your community. So if that's the first step of showing up, trying to figure out how to have these conversations and build these deeper relationships, how do we do that so that we can then push for long-term change, effective long-term change?
For me, I thought about not just like my own church, but also like some of the when I was doing like my minor and undergrad, some of the classes I took that was related to like service. And one of the key things that we talked about in that class was address a real need and not what you see as a need. And so actually making sure that when you're going out in the community, you're engaging, you're making these connections with the actual people. Cause you could see, oh, they probably need like, X, Y, and Z. We could do a drive for this, but no, you should have actual conversations and connections and meet with the people so then you can actually truly make an impact in whatever area that they really need. And so I think about like my own church, they have this um, outreach center that started off as like a task force missionary, and it's around eliminating the spread of HIV and AIDS, helping people who currently struggle with HIV and AIDS, and then also just informing people and spreading the information and education throughout the community. And this was created, I think, in 2000. So I've heard about it literally all my life. And so seeing how my church community was going into the community, talking to people, really identifying like a real need that was really taboo and people didn't really talk about it and they just didn't have the resources. I think that really inspired my view of how I look at service and what it means to actually really connect with a community and be a pillar. You like it's not just oh yeah, we donated X, Y, and Z, we did this X, Y,
Yeah.
but it's like we're actually someone who is seen as a pillar. People can come to us, they can get information, and if they want to join the church, sure, but it's not just about like boosting like the church numbers. It's actually about making an impact. So I think that's pretty cool that I had that within like my own church, but that's just how I always remembered hearing about it, seeing like in the church basement when we would go to different like events and everything, seeing the posters and the signage. So I just inherently kind of learned things before I should have known about like STDs and everything. I always kind of like saw that.
Mm. That's maybe it's because you're up north. I was gonna say that's a little advanced for a church, I feel like for me growing up, but I'm in North Carolina. So like I don't know, I just feel like I didn't see a lot of churches doing that. Um and there's a church every street in North Carolina. You drive down one street, you got like 10 churches. So I feel like that was pretty cool of your church to do. Pretty advanced to do, I think. Maybe it's just like where I grew up. Yeah, pat yourself on the back. Go
Like I
ahead.
did anything.
Good. Andrea, what about you when it comes to uh how we can hold on, sorry, I just blanked for a second. But when it comes to service projects and focusing on how we can build deeper relationships within community to push for long-term change, because I know you said you didn't necessarily have that community because you moved around a lot, but in what you have seen and experienced, what are your thoughts?
I think my community, or at least smaller institutions, not the huge ones, but the smaller, even the big ones, need to focus a little
Mm-hmm.
more on um, having projects that extend beyond the temple or the place of worship. It should probably try looking at um, providing service to those who are unable to access basic resources or meet their basic needs. I don't think that's done very often, and I don't think it's done in a sustainable manner. Um, and that's something that I find very lacking in within my community. That's something. Sorry, what was the second half of your question or the first half of your question? I want to connect this point and say they need to build this first before they look at building it with other communities.
It was basically like how can they start doing long projects that service projects that focus on long-term change through building community?
Right. I think building a sense of community would be the first task, which is not something that happens very often. You need a sense of building a sense of community within your faith first, and then expanding that to those outside would be the first step. If you do, because nobody really interacts as such at a temple space.
Hmm. I think that got me thinking about my answer because I didn't write my answer down to these, honestly. I just thought about them and that's it, which is probably why I'm sitting here like, But it got me thinking about one thing I thought about, which was when it comes to building, because everything we've been talking about up until now, we keep dancing around the question or the topic of how do you build community. We're all like, we don't really know, we don't see it, it's not really modeled for us. But for me, I think religion to me is arguably one of the most weaponized things in history: religion and gender, those two things. And I think that when it comes to religion being so weaponized, historically speaking, from the creation of religion, whatever religion is that you believe in, whatever spirituality that you believe in, till now, there's so much history. It's so complex. There's so many layers to it that to get back to the root and the foundation of the religion, it takes so much healing because you have to go through all the conflicts, the wars, the the genocides. You have to go through all of those different stages of history, heal together individually and as a community, and then keep working your way back till you get to the foundation. And I feel like we haven't learned how to heal, and so we haven't learned how to be a community. That's what I think when it comes to that. Because when I have these conversations with people about like how do we strengthen our community, da 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 da, especially when it comes to faith, it's always a matter of like, I don't know, we should have this dialogue. I don't know, we should do this service or we should have these projects together. And yeah, you can make tangible things. You can keep having service projects. You can keep collaborating with like um, other faith communities or other organizations. But until we start to find ways to heal from the history and the negativity that's not negativity, I don't think that works, the atrocities maybe that have happened, and until we find a way to hold ourselves accountable for the things that our own identities have taken part of, it's going to be hard for us to get to a point where we can build community with a intentional foundation maybe. So yeah, I feel like we can't necessarily, like, thinking of that question, I we can create service projects that are long term, right? It's possible to like create long term change and fight the system and empower people both in your community and out of it, but we have to go through history in order to do that. And I don't think we do that enough because we don't necessarily like holding ourselves accountable for what our ancestors have done, whether we're victims or we're the oppressors.
That's true. I mean, it's uncomfortable, right, to be held accountable for
Mm-hmm.
something that perhaps you had very little hand in doing yourself, but are reaping the
Exactly. Yeah.
benefits of indirectly because that's how society operates, that's how wealth operates and privilege. I mean, it's difficult because it's very hard for people to look beyond their own difficulties.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Like, we have this discussion around reservation in India, and which is basically affirmative action along the lines of caste. And I come from an upper caste community, which has, in the past few decades or so, become financially a bit more stable, you can say. So for people of the previous generation, it's really hard for them to reconcile that, hey, that yes, I had struggles, but I also perhaps had a little privilege as well. You understand? Because it's very hard to say that, yeah, this I understand that they don't have money, but neither did we. We didn't have any money either. So what exactly are we? Why am I being punished?
Yeah.
So, and that's how it gets termed, at least mentally, like, okay, I get it, I understand, but that's not happening right now. I'm not doing it. Why am I being punished for it? And everything is termed along the lines of punishment and reward rather
Yeah.
than, um, and it feels unfair because it feels like you're punishing an entire lineage for something that perhaps may or may not have happened by people of their own, in their own line ancestry. So it's difficult. It's difficult to convince someone to look beyond their own difficulties. It's difficult to convince someone that is not, don't look at it through the prism of punishment or penance or whatever. And also, there's another layer to it, don't you think? Like, when we look at uh, advocacy, especially caste-based advocacy in India, there's this idea that you should not speak for those because, okay, how do I put this? As a person of privilege, I should not be speaking of those who have not had that same privilege because then I'm stealing their voice. I'm not letting them speak for themselves.
You mean like you explain that a little bit more?
Okay, so the idea is that um, as an upper caste individual, let's say that I strongly believe that something that's happening is bad, and traditionally or historically marginalized communities should not be treated that way. Dalit communities should not be treated a particular way. And let's say I want to lead a movement against it. I am basically retracing the same cycle of oppression.
Okay, I got it.
You get it? Because I am trying to
Yeah.
speak for someone else. But that's
Hmm.
that's not how it should be. I should perhaps, in my way, I don't even know if this is the right analogy, this is the right way to go about it, but support those from within the community so that they can speak for themselves and the movement comes from within. So even if, yeah,
I get it. I
right,
think it's the way I think about it is you help provide the opportunity, but you don't take the opportunity for yourself to speak for others. So like if there's like group A has privilege, group B doesn't have as much privilege and has been oppressed. If I was in group A, it's not necessarily my place to stand there and speak for group B, but I can use the privilege that I have to help create opportunities so that group B can speak for themselves and uplift themselves and empower themselves. And then we
agreed.
can also take part in that based off of what group B wants to do in the direction they want. It's like what T said about make sure you're not just, I'm paraphrasing what you said, but it's when you said like make sure you're not just helping on the surface, but you're actually doing what they need, not just what you think they need. I think that's what you said. Yeah. So I think it's along those lines. That's the way I've always thought about it.
I mean, yes, that's true because sometimes it's just like you're doing what you think they need, but you're not actually you're not, how do I put this? You're not actually uplifting or helping them rise above
Yeah.
that particular situation. But in other cases where let's say you actually you're integrated in some way and that you're interacting with them and you're engaging with them and you're basically going out and getting that attention because you have that social capital,
Privilege.
privilege, absolutely privilege, and the means to do it. Even then, it's in a way stealing their voice. Even though it's what they want to say, they're not saying it. You're saying it for them.
Um, I've heard that before. I think for me, what are you saying that, or you brought this up because you said that's like another layer to it? That's why you started off.
I mean, I just feel that I personally get a little confused in this regard. I'm like, okay, where do you it's like, tell me what do you want me to do and I'll do it.
Yeah.
I do not want to get into this murky space of figuring out what is right, what is not right, because I don't want anything to be, I don't want it to be counterproductive. I don't want it to be something that pushes an initiative back. I want it to
Mm-hmm.
I want to be of help and not, I don't want to be a nuisance, and I don't want to step on anybody's toes at the same time. Especially if my intentions were to help or to provide, I don't even help. Help is like such a weird word. Provide assistance in any way possible, which is the same thing in fancier terms. But the point is, if my intention is to truly commit to something that I believe in, but I should go about it in the right way, and I get confused, and it makes me anxious.
So, what's your role and responsibility when it comes to advocating for others, essentially? In the simplest terms, I know it's more complex than that, but in the simplest terms, talking to a fifth grader, what is your role and responsibility when it comes to helping to advocate or to stand up for what you believe in, even if it's not your place to say, even if it's not your story to tell,
Okay,
in the
so
simplest terms.
okay, so the story thing when speaking for someone else, that's a different thing altogether. I think that's a more movement-based idea of um, how to stand up for your beliefs. But let's say in day-to-day action, I'm a coward. Okay.
I'm sorry. I was not expecting
I'm
that.
a coward.
Okay.
I saw this question. I was like, I looked at these questions and I was like, like, remember you said about challenging or upholding unfair systems, right? So I was like, I'm a coward. Let's be honest. I'm a coward. I think in my head I'm doing all these things post-mortem, like after everything is done, I'm like, I should have done that, I should have done this, but I'm a coward. Lately, I have been trying to, if I believe in something, I'm trying to act by that. Talk the talk, walk, whatever. That, I'm trying to do that. In small ways, in everyday life. If you see something that you think that I believe stems from a deep-rooted system of prejudice, I would, in my own way, do something to show that that's wrong. Cut this out. But let's say a few years ago, when I went to the temple with someone who works in my house, I didn't know her background. I didn't know her caste. We were just going to the temple because, oh, I've never been to this temple and I've lived here for 10 years. It's a shame. Let's go. So we went to the temple and we were coming back and I was like, oh, we did this particular ritual and we were coming back. And then she's like, oh, that man doesn't really like me. The priest doesn't like me. I was like, why doesn't he like you? And then she said that, oh, because he knows that everybody who basically does domestic work in this area are of the scheduled caste or scheduled tribe background. And I was like, oh, I didn't know that. I was like, oh,
I can feel the awkwardness.
I was like, oh. I was like so privileged that I didn't even realize what was happening. And I just thought he looked down on them because they were not well off, which is not, doesn't make it any better. Does not make it any better. But that's what I thought it was initially but when she explained it, I was like, oh wow, that's something really weird. And then we went back to the temple the next day, and I made sure that he took her name down properly and did the ritual properly for her and I asked her if she wanted that done, and she said yes. So in a way, standing up for things that I believe in. A lot of people, when you go to their houses, they won't let their domestic help eat in the same plate or sit on their sofas or things like that. It's very common,
Hmm.
and these are educated people. So insisting that in your own house that they get the respect that they deserve because they're human beings and they deserve respect. That they sit with you when they're eating, if they're eating with you, and they sit on the sofa rather than sitting on the floor. Or if they insist on sitting on the floor, I sit along with. So small things.
Can I give an observation, please?
Mm.
You called yourself a coward, and I feel like you're being just a little hard on yourself. I think this is just my observation. Think that, and it kind of goes along with you too, T. I think both of you are so concerned with not hurting anyone or like hurting a group of people or messing up that you guys get stuck in the thought process of what's the right thing to do so you don't act. So it's not like you're not acting because you're like cowardly. I think it's more so it's like not decision paralysis, I think it's called. It's like you guys aren't sure what to do sometimes because you guys care so much not to hurt people.
I
I know
don't.
you didn't call yourself a coward, T, but I think it's an observation for both of you because I've seen it a lot. Like I think there's certain things we do within Mosaic like when we make certain decisions about what to talk about or what topics to discuss, what to talk about or what topics to discuss. It's not that's the same thing. The same thing. Anyway. And then outside of Mosaic, when we have our personal conversations, I think that I can hear you guys caring so much, but you're caring so much that it's like you don't know what steps to take. You're just like, I don't know. And you're so paralyzed in your thoughts, you forget to take action. So I don't think that you're cowardly. Obviously, you didn't call yourself cowardly, T. Shreya, I don't think that you're cowardly. I think you guys just got to take the leap to do things with the right intention and then trust yourself and be have enough courage to know, okay, I'm going to be wrong at some point. I'm going to hurt someone at some point even if I don't want to, and I have to believe that I will be okay. I have to have trust and faith in myself that I will be able to bounce back from that, that I will learn and I will do better. That's what I think it is. I don't think it's that you're cowardly. You just
Mm.
get like stuck in the idea of not trying to hurt anybody, which is impossible. We're human beings. We're gonna hurt people. It's just gonna happen. And we're fairly young, so like we still have years and years and years of learning and making mistakes. So you just let yourself make the mistakes. You don't necessarily have to go out and be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be disrespectful. Like, don't do that, obviously. But if you do say something and it is disrespectful and someone calls you out on it, just hold yourself accountable and then adjust and adapt. That's it. That's my observation. Because cowardly is a very strong word. I think a lot of times in society, we we uplift or not uplift, we applaud those who are brave, and they should be applauded. Being brave is not necessarily a characteristic that everyone has. To be able to stand up to a grandmother, to be able to stand up for what's right, to always act, we applaud that. We give people movies and book deals and interviews and all these different things. But then it creates this oftentimes unrealistic standard of what it means to be an advocate. Like when y'all let me know if y'all want this, if y'all want me to restate this. But I'm gonna say it, but let me know if you want me to restate it. When we were at school and we had all those protests going on, um, I don't like protests. I don't. I don't feel safe in them. They make me very uncomfortable, make me very anxious. It's not the way that I choose to advocate. But oftentimes, those are the people that get applauded for their work to stand up for what they believe in, right? But it's like if I choose to advocate through writing a paper about it or through talking to people or donating something anonymously, it's not seen as brave, even though it is helping the problem. It's just a different way. So I think it's like, even if it takes you a long time to get to the point where it's like, oh, enough's enough. I'm going to stand up. I'm going to say this. I'm going to do all this, whatever it is, or whatever the situation is. Same thing. I think it's just, it takes time, like normal. And we've created this unrealistic standard of what it means to be an advocate, and what it means to fight for justice, what it means to create a community. There's so many different ways we can do it, and yet we say that it has to be done in this one way because it's the way that we have to do it in this one way for others to be able to see and do it for themselves, right? And I think some of the best advocates are the ones who unintentionally got applauded, unintentionally got the praise, unintentionally got that pedestal, not well, pedestal, some of them, but unintentionally got that platform to speak up. Like Greta, I can't remember her last name.
Thunberg.
Greta, she's
Thunberg?
young.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Thunberg, yeah. Like she unintentionally got this platform to speak up about the environment and how we can better take care of the earth that we come from, right? But she's one girl, she's one teenager who left school, and I think it was that I think she skipped school and she stood in front of somewhere, like blocking something. I can't remember. It was in high school. The very first thing she did that she got attention for. And that's so brave and that's so admirable. But some people are doing it in their own way. No, I'm telling you, most 15-year-olds can't do that. Most 15-year-olds can't do that. Most 20-year-olds can't go up to the grandma and be like, "Hey grandma, let's not say that racist comment." "Hey grandma, let's be a little less judgmental. Hey grandma, let's think about it." Like most people can't do that, but then we give, I don't know. That's my little rant. I guess we just create these unrealistic expectations of what it means to create a community and what it means to stand up for people.
Yeah.
And that's also getting in the way of us creating long-term effective change to help society as a whole. And it's also getting in the way of healing as well.
Yeah. I
Makes sense.
just to say, I know I've been talking for a bit, but I think if you want to create
Shut
change,
up.
I'm
Sorry.
not going to.
Sorry. Okay, I got it. I control myself.
No, but if you want to create change, if that's something that, or let's say, change starts at home. Start at home. If you see
Yeah.
problems at home, start at home. I don't think the idea of calling myself a coward came from seeking glory or the appreciation for it, but just it felt hollow. When you see something, you recognize it, but you see, the thing when it comes to unfair social practices is that it is not as simple as A leads to B.
Mm-hmm.
It's so complex because there are so many things adding to it. There are so many things that are being fed to this particular problem. And you're usually dealing with people who have had experiences that have solidified whatever they're thinking. So it's hard. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not just about standing up for what you believe in, but also understanding the social context in which that practice is set.
That's true.
So it's
It's very intertwined with everything. How can we reconcile the fact that the privileges of our faith communities, the harm and the harm that we've caused to others, the oppression we've caused to others, the oppression and the harm that has been caused to us, how do we reconcile all those with the fact that we have to find a way to move forward? We have to find a way to move forward. We have to, especially in this climate, like with everything going on, we have to find a way quickly to get together, grow as a community, and create long-lasting change that helps the other generations, the future generations. So, how do we reconcile holding ourselves accountable for what we've done while also healing from what other people have done to us, and then having conversations within those communities, both ours and the communities outside of us, to create long change when it comes to faith communities and spiritual communities? It's a long question. There's many ways you can approach it. Approach it however you want to approach the question. That's it. But it's just a matter of like zoning back into what the topic was about advocacy and community service based off of everything we talked about.
I feel like there needs to be wait. I feel like there needs to be like a bottom line, if that makes sense. Like the process might be different, the beliefs might be different, but there has to be like a shared goal that we're all trying to work towards. And I think when the end goal is the same, there'll be focus on doing what is needed so that we can all advance. And sometimes, like the intricacies, the little things that we sometimes get stuck on that divide us, we're able to either put those to bed or solve them for the sake
Mm-hmm.
of the bigger goal. Mm.
mm,
Mm.
like a purpose
An
to the
aim.
interaction. Interesting.
Along those lines, this is me being a dreamer. Like
Mm,
this is like, and if I had all the money in the world and the social status and all that, whatever, I think there needs to be an organization. Well, I think there needs to be multiple, at least three for checks and balances. Organizations that faith communities and spiritual communities, whatever, can subscribe to and take part in. And the sole purpose of this organization is to create um, interfaith understanding and interfaith change. That's what I think. In the perfect world, around, well, I'm going to talk about America because I can't really talk about the world. I'm acting like I'm a genius. I'm not. I don't know what's going on everywhere in the world. I just know a little bit. But in America specifically, if there was like three organizations in every faith community, if it's my mosque and then it's like y'all's church, and like no matter what state or city you're in, if you want to, you can subscribe to take part in this movement. And so this organization would be in charge of the in-kind community service. There's a food drive in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Sign up for it, and then a church, a mosque, a synagogue. I just said the Abrahamic religions, a temple, the Sikh religion, the
Gurudwara.
Gurdrata. Yeah, I
Gurudwara.
never pronounced that right. Yeah, but they can all sign up for it, or they can be like, okay, we're having this national interfaith dialogue. Every city that is within our organization. At 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, we're going to get together and have a healing circle from different communities. Or it's a historically, we're talking about the Crusades, and on throughout the month of March, we're going to have a bunch of different organizations going to or coming together and da da da. Like in my dreamer mind, that would be ideal. There's just 2 to 3 organizations that work together to check each other, and then find ways to get faith communities together to make it easier for them to be able to have these conversations and to heal and to hold themselves accountable while also helping their community. I can create a business plan if necessary. But
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
that's my dreamer mindset.
Also, shout out to Gurudwaras. They do service in kind and otherwise really well. They are exemplary.
I agree. I agree. And
Exemplary. Oh my God.
they're really beautiful. Really, I mean, the ones I've been to have been gorgeous, I
They give
think.
you like
Um,
full meals. Doesn't matter. Doesn't
mhm,
just go in there. Like they'll serve meals like 3 times a day. And it's not like you get a small portion. They give you like it's like a buffet. You eat.
mhm,
And it's all volunteer
mm.
based. It is so beautiful. Oh my God.
The most difficult thing when I've been to them is like they have this rule or practice where your feet can't be facing um I don't think it's a deity, but it can't be
I
facing
understand. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, the front basically. So like it's always hard for me like if I sit crisscross like my feet got to go like that or like I just sit on my knees. Um and that always stands out to me. I can't remember why. Um but they were just like and then seeing all the kids and the I think it's so beautiful seeing kids in their own faith communities and their own like religious communities and the way that you can see the kids taking part in the rituals in the faith communities and like they might not fully understand the depth as to why but it still means something to them to do it. I mean some of them are doing it out of fear but some of them are also doing it because it's like oh yeah I want to be a good Muslim, I want to be a good Hindu, I want to yeah like there's an innocence to it that kind of goes away as you grow up,
Yeah.
which is kind of sad.
I wish temples had that. I wish temples did that. Like, if suppose there was a temple in my in India where I was growing up, where they said that, oh, we need volunteers to, we're going to be serving food 24 hours, I mean, 4 times a day, every day. We need money for it. I'm sure my
Mm-hmm.
family would have contributed. They would have actually shown up and volunteered as well to help cook food for
Mm-hmm.
everybody, and not just people who pay for it, but just everybody who needs food that day or wants to eat that day. But they don't do that as often. And the only temple I've seen do it is, and they'll give you a small, tiny portion of um, lentil rice, which is delicious, but not nearly enough.
Mm, yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's that. I think. I think she has something to say.
You didn't let me answer my question. I did answer the question.
I thought you were answering the
No, I
question,
was
but
saying something about
continue.
Gurudwara. You mentioned Gurudwara, so I was just saying that
Just breathe, breathe, breathe.
choking on spit is not fun. I think one way to do whatever that we need to do to answer your question is adding on to what T said, because what she said makes a lot of sense. And your idea is great. But I think it's to keep the poison out of the younger generation. If you're able to lessen the prejudice and dislike, and not even prejudice, the dislike that you have, the intensity of that emotion that you have for a community that you're in conflict with, it automatically makes them more open to interactions which education and other cultural activities can foster. So if you, it's like post partition in India, it was a different generation altogether. People now don't feel the same intensity of emotions against the other country or the other people, people living on the other side of the border, because that intensity has come down and people are not, how do I say, reinforcing it constantly. Anyway, that's it.
Yeah. I think it's there's a lot of ways to go about it and I think it's such a heavy goal or heavy task that we get paralyzed in decisions and in fear of what can go wrong. But yeah, well that's that. Any last minute thoughts, comments, concerns, questions?
No, this is interesting. I like this.
Congrats on your second interfaith dialogue. Uh, how do you feel?
It was good. It was nice to listen because I didn't really have a lot of thoughts, but it was nice to hear y'all's thoughts.
I think this made me think a lot more because I was
Mm-hmm.
entering an area where I do not have enough knowledge or experience, and it felt more in my through my life experience, I've seen that issues like this are more social than faith-based. Well, they had, I mean, how to put this? My view of these were more social than faith-based, which is perhaps myopic.
That's fair.
So this was an interesting conversation. I really liked it. It's made me think a lot more. I'm going to do a bit of research.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
What about you, Rose?
It was cool. Had a good time. The pollen is really getting me. Not gonna lie, my head is not here, and my nose is on fire. Bye, guys. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for tuning in to the Mosaic Podcast.
Don't forget to follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and Spotify to stay updated on new posts and episodes. Also, tune in to our blog where T. Marie posts every Monday, Roseberry every Wednesday, and I, Shreya, every Thursday.
We're grateful you're here, and we look forward to embracing the intersections of identity together in the episodes to come. Until next time,
Stay curious.
Stay true.
and stay unapologetically you. Bye.